Reporting to the media this week at Post-Executive Council Media Briefing is the Chief Secretary Orville London and the Secretary of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, Assemblyman Hughie Cadet.
I want to report on a couple matters within the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport. Firstly, of course, we have seen the beginning of the new school term on Monday last, and all schools would have opened as normal and as expected, with the exception of 3 of our secondary schools that had staggered openings, and this would have been a result of posting of CSEC for private candidates for January. And of course, this was Scarborough Secondary, Signal Hill Secondary, and Bishop's High Schools. These 3 schools between Monday and today would have had different open hours for different form levels. On Monday, all classes for Scarborough Secondary and Signal Hill was closed. At Bishop's was forms 1 to 4. And of course, Tuesday again was all classes for Scarborough Sec and Signal Hill, and forms 1 to 4 for Bishop's. And today was forms 1, 5, and 1 for Scarborough Sec and Bishop's High School. This was, of course, as I indicated before, with a view to hosting of the our CSEC examinations for private candidates in January. Just to provide an update on exactly how many candidates that we had for the January exams. We had over 1,045 persons registered to take the exams in 13 disciplines, and those subjects that were listed to be examined, English A, English B, Mathematics, Principles of Business, Principles of Accounts, Physics, Chemistry, Social Studies, Biology General, Information Technology, Office Administration, Human and Social Biology, and Spanish, with the lion's share of the candidates being in English A and Mathematics. We, of course, would want to extend best wishes to both the candidates who are involved in the January exams, and of course best wishes to all the students who would have returned to school on Monday, that of course they'll have a successful term. And we of course want to extend best wishes to the principals and staff that are very in school. And we of course in the division stand ready for a very exciting second term. This is the term that we will, of course, focus on our preparation for SA and a number of other examination bodies. We also, of course, within this term would have more focus in terms of our sports and education unit, in terms of athletics, track and field in general, and, of course, cricket and netball and basketball. I'd also take the pleasure to announce that the Kendall Aquatic Facility will be officially commissioned next week, Thursday, at 5 p.m. This, of course, we know that the division would have begun the construction of this facility in 2012, and using the model that involved the YMCA and private contractors, we have been able to, I think, in our opinion, deliver a very first-class facility to the people of Tobago, and of course specifically the people of the Windward. So on next week, Thursday, the 15th at 5 p.m., the Kendall Aquatic Facility will be officially opened. Just to provide an update on the Dwight York Stadium, last Wednesday, the Assistant Secretary in the Division, Assemblyman Jomo Pitt, along with other representatives of the division, representatives of OSHA, the sports company, and the ministry, would have met at the Dwight York Stadium with a view to addressing the issues reference the current closure of the Dwight York Stadium. The way forward with regards to coming out of this meeting, one is that the sports company will now have to do an evaluation of all the outstanding work that needs to be done. So OSHA has indicated that once these works have been done, plumbing, some minor plumbing works, some works with regards to electrical, some works with regards to the air conditioning unit, once these works have been undertaken, they are prepared to give permission for use of the Dwight York Stadium for activities related, of course, to the use of the track, and of course the wider the football field and other areas. So we, of course, in contact now with the sports committee to ensure that they, in a timely manner, provide that costing and and the timeline. So when those works will begin, so that we can have an idea when the stadium will become available. It is hoped that we will be able to host the primary and secondary school zonal championships in Tobago. That is scheduled for March of this year. As regards to the structural integrity of the main stand, we are still awaiting a final engineering assessment to determine what work may be required, and if that, of course, if the stand as it is right now poses a danger, or if it can be utilized with some minor repairs. Of course, we are in the division, and of course, I think the Chief Secretary indicated at his last press briefing, we are constantly in contact with the sports company, because we are very concerned that after a significant investment in the Regapole track, that our athletes, both our in the student athletes and of course our elite athletes, do not have access to the track to train or to compete. And we feel that there's an anomaly that we'll have to address, especially in a year when we have Pan Am Games and World Championships. There is a need to ensure that that track is available for our athletes to use here in Tobago. Let me just provide an update on the Scarborough Library. At this point, we are awaiting the approval of the fire services with regards to ensuring that the building meets all of the requirements for public access. I think before we'd have advised that the fire services would have given the division and the assembly provisional access, and that would allow our staff to occupy the building and to be undertaking necessary preparations for the opening of the library and of course the delivery of services. We have been advised that fire services and those inspectors to be in Tobago on the 14th to do that final inspection. And coming out of that inspection and the successful hosting of that and that approval, we will be able to advise members of the public, of course, and the media of the opening date of the Scarborough Library. There are still some final works to be done. There's some damage to the roof in the area of the Young Adults Library. That work is currently, that repair work is currently being done. There are some areas where some minor retiling work has to also be done. Of course, the external works in terms of the yard and the amphitheater, those works are also at the final stages of completion. In terms of the services, we continue to process books, of course, the new books that we have received and purchased over time, so that to allow for a wider selection at this new library. We are also putting in place all of the ICT equipment that will allow for a new system for registration and loaning of books, and of course for access to the services at the new library. All of this is of course works that we expect to be completed within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And of course, pending fire services approval, as I said, we will advise within the next 2 weeks of the date of the opening of the Scarborough Library facility. Let me of course just offer my own personal condolences to the family of Mr. Martin Joseph. I have known Mr. Joseph myself from my days at the National Insurance Board, and of course during our own campaign as the People's National Movement. So I really want to, on my own behalf, express of course his family and friends and condolences to Mr. Martin Joseph.
Let me just maybe take off on where you left. With also extending my personal condolences to the family, the friends, and the many admirers of Mr. Martin Joseph, former Minister of National Security and long-serving Secretary of the People's National Movement. And you know, if I were to look back at Mr. Martin Joseph, I would describe him as a man who walked the earth with a kind of quiet dignity, but was still able to make a mark and to make a significant difference. Mr. Joseph was the man behind every election campaign in Tobago during my tenure as the Tobago political leader. And he managed those campaigns with a degree of professionalism and pragmatism that forced us to really leave out the emotional aspects that sometimes overtake us at election time. And I think much of the success which we have gained during the last maybe 15 years or so must be related to our association with Mr. Martin Joseph. But I think in addition to that, he was loyal to and he loved his party. But a lot of people who do not know him well would not appreciate his love for and his loyalty to Trinidad and Tobago, and of course his affinity to Tobago. In fact, I think that he had a special love for Tobago, and he always felt that he had a responsibility to ensure that things in Tobago went what he considered to be the right way. And if I were to sum up his philosophy, it was really to do the right things and to do them in the right way. Whether it was managing an election campaign, whether it was, in his own choices, in his personal life, whatever. He always felt compelled to do the right things and to do them in the right way. And I think that, he's one of those individuals who's likely to be more appreciated when he's gone than when he was around, because he tended to be a very retiring kind of person and did not blow his own trumpet. But I think as we look back on his contribution, we become more appreciative of the quality of the man and the contribution, the fantastic contribution that he has made to his party, to the country, and of course to us in Tobago. And I want to really join in expressing, my sentiments and indicating how deeper a void he's going to leave in the lives of many of us. I want to just say a little about the economic situation and to place the Tobago situation in context. Like the rest of the country, we await two statements or two signals. The signals that will come from the Prime Minister after her address tomorrow, and of course from the statements and actions of the Minister of Finance subsequent to that. It is based on that we will be able to make specific adjustments and to be more specific in our responses. However, we cannot be naive or insensitive, and we must accept the fact that the situation in Tobago in 2015 is obviously not going to be identical to what it was in 2014. And that said, what we intend to do is that next Thursday and Friday, the entire executive, secretaries and assistant secretaries, will be engaged in a 2-day retreat at the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute. And during that retreat, we will be analyzing the impact of whatsoever changes have to be made on the divisions, on the communities, on the electoral districts, and making the necessary adjustments. We know that some hard decisions will have to be made. We know we have a responsibility to manage the affairs of Tobago in a manner that will, bring minimal pain. But what we are asking for is an understanding and a recognition that times have changed, and as times change, of course, adjustments will have to be made. But as managers, we have a responsibility to ensure that we utilize the resources available in a way that would give us an opportunity to continue development, but also give us an opportunity to guarantee that the future of Tobago will still be on a positive path. So after that meeting of next week, Thursday and Friday, we'll be in a position to give a more detailed and relevant response to the situation and to what Tobago's position is. And I will be advising the Secretary of Finance to attend the press conference immediately after that to give a more detailed account as to how the situation will evolve for us in Tobago. On the 18th of January, the forum, that forum comprising representatives of the People's National Movement, the Tobago Platform of Truth, the Chief Secretary and the Secretariat, will be hosting a public meeting at Keenan Bonner Court to update the people of Tobago on where we are with respect to the review of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, to give the people of Tobago an opportunity to again revisit the benefits to be derived from autonomy, and maybe just as importantly, the dangers that are likely to confront us if we do not treat with this autonomy issue once and for all and allow it to drag on indefinitely, especially in a situation if you do have a government that is not sympathetic. And of course, to again confirm what we believe is the responsibility of us in Tobago to take the struggle to the next level. The meeting is supposed to start at 5 in the afternoon, and more details will be provided as we ramp up towards the 18th. But the date is the 18th of January, Keenan Bonner Court, and the platform will of course include a representative of the People's National Movement, Mr. Charles of the TPT, Dr. Guy of the Secretariat, and of course I as Chief Secretary will also be involved in that exercise. I just want to comment on two things. One, the situation at the Shaw Park Cultural Complex. There's a meeting carded for the Office of the Chief Secretary at 1 p.m. tomorrow. At that meeting, there will be representation from the secretaries. The secretary, I will be there to chair the meeting. Deputy Chief Secretary in her capacity as Secretary of Tourism and Transportation, Mr. Cadet as Secretary of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, Mr. Jack, Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development, Secretary Melville, and Secretary Angus. And they will be joined by representatives of the various divisions, the Chief Administrator, Mr. John Arnold, Mr. Kwesi Devines of Culture, Mr. Trim, Theophilus Trim of Education, Tricia Beckers of Finance, Atiba Martin of Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities, Mr. Gilbert O'Connor, and Mr. Elvis Rajman from the Community Development and Culture Division. And the purpose of that meeting is to plan for the opening of the Shaw Park Cultural Facility. That opening is carded for very early in February. There are 2 dates that we have in mind, but those dates would be discussed and finalized so that by the end of that meeting on Thursday, we should have finalized the date. We also want to just indicate that there will be some activities, some of the carnival activities are carded or will be scheduled for the cultural complex, including the very popular interdepartment carnival show. And I expect that by the end of this week, early next week, we'll be having a schedule of the activities that will be taking place during the first month, during the month of February. I just want to also indicate that the committee, that committee comprising the secretaries and the technocrats led by Mr. Arnold, they will be responsible for managing the affairs of the complex for the first 3 months. until we put a board in place. And of course, within the next 3 weeks, there are a number of positions which should be filled so that the complex should be up and running immediately. I also want to announce that we did approve at the Executive Council today for Mr. Arnold and Mr. Devines to attend a conference of to deal with conference tourism in England in mid-February, because one of the areas that this will afford us in Tobago is the opportunity to get involved in mass conference tourism, because with a facility that can seat 5,000 people, it does in fact change the whole ball game where Tobago is concerned. And I think that outside of Barbados, we will provide maybe the largest and best facility for mass conferences in the region. So it does open a new aspect with respect to our tourism. And the final point is just well, not a message, some information from the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities. Just before we left our press conference earlier today, the Minister, the Secretary of Infrastructure and Public Utilities did indicate that following the challenges facing the PTSC with respect to the location or locating the bus terminus, that the division took the initiative to meet with the owners, the Tobago United Cooperative Society, and they have agreed to a 3-month extension. In the meantime, the division will be entering into discussions with the cooperative to find out whether they're willing to sell or lease a large area of that property, so that we could have a situation where the bus terminus can be placed there, feeling that we'll have to look at other alternatives. The Tobago House of Assembly is definitely not in favor of and will not support the decision to place the bus terminus on that little spot of land on the wharfs. We think it is highly unsuitable, and under no circumstances will the Tobago House of Assembly approve that. But we don't operate like that, where we just simply say no, and we don't want this. We feel that if we don't agree with an option, the Minister would have, in an effort to get the problem resolved, he would have provided an option. We don't agree with it, but we think we have a responsibility to come up with something else. So the Minister is going to be coming to Tobago. I can give you the specific time the day after, but later this month, and we will meet to discuss a number of issues. And I'm certain that I will invite the Secretary of Infrastructure, and we can discuss, a suitable venue. Because this is no reason for us to, have any conflict. I think the Minister is acting in good faith, and the fact that we disagree with him does not mean that we have to be at loggerheads with that. So when he comes, we will have a discussion. We will examine the other options, and of course come up with one which we believe is mutually acceptable.
In terms of the awaited statement from the Prime Minister tomorrow, is there any expectations from the THA as to how much the THA will have to cut back on expenditure and so on?
There is really no expectation as such. We wait, because you see, until there is a general evaluation made, because you got to bear in mind that the equation is not a one-to-one equation, because the oil prices have dropped to maybe 50%, that it means that the budget is going to be 50%, that there's going to be a 50% budget cut. And that's why I'm saying the economists have to make that kind of evaluation, determine how it's going to impact, and then of course determine whether there are going to be cuts, and if what cuts in what direction. Is it going to be on the recurrent? Is it going to be on the development, and so on? And then it is only after you get that kind of information that you'll be able to know what the details are. But what we are doing from the Assembly perspective, and Mr. Mr. Khaled will tell you that we have started looking at our expenditure and looking at our budgets and so on, and sort of categorizing those areas that are considered crucial, those areas where you know you cannot, you just simply have to find the funding, and those where you might have a little bit more flexibility. But I think it's prudent to wait to see what the facts are. You prepare yourself, you adjust your mindset, but at the end of the day, you wait until you get the facts, because when the evaluation is done at the national level, we also have to do an evaluation of the Tobago economy, because it's not just a matter of finding funding, it's a matter of also ensuring that you don't stultify development. But I think to a certain extent, it also provides us with an opportunity. It's like any family. If your finances have become, straitened, you tend to find that you demand from yourself more value for money. You take a more stringent approach to spending, etc. So that, yes, it is going to be a challenging year, but it could also be a strengthening year for us, where we're able to, whether it is at the assembly, whether it is at the division, at the family level or the individual level, that we have a more healthy respect, or healthier respect for money, and make greater demands with respect to value for money.
For those students that are in need of help, that would be those students who would have some challenges that's allowing them. I only recently learned that the situation there is so bad that some students repeat in some cases. What I want to find out is, how is that conversation going in relation to Tobago?
I know that what we have in Tobago, we have a program of remedial instructors that already exists and has been in the system for quite a while, that provides support for students who may have certain academic challenges. I'm not sure if that might be the conversation. We also, of course, annually run our For Boys only program that allows us a targeted approach to addressing male underachievement. So I'm not sure if that might be the conversation, but that may be part of it.
A conversation took place between the Cabinet and the Executive Council recently at the Magdalena. And there were some commitments given by the Prime Minister that certain cooperations would take place, certain things will be put in place. They weren't specified, meaning short, medium, and long term, but I'd like to get an update.
The Prime Minister made a number of commitments, and in fact, I had to write her, I wrote her about a week or two ago about two of them. One of them was a commitment to have a cabinet meet to make a decision on a recommendation which I had made to her with respect to representatives of the central government meeting with representatives of the Tobago entities to discuss a united or collaborative way forward with respect to the review of the Tobago House of Assembly Act and self-government for Tobago. I have received no response from her on that, nor have I received any response with respect to my letter which I had written to her, as I said, about 2 weeks or so ago. The other matter on which I wrote her, where she had made a commitment, was that I would have presented her with documentation to support my contention that the Ministry of Tobago Development was in fact encroaching on the powers of the authority or the arena of the Tobago House of Assembly. She did indicate that she will get advice. Yes, and respond to that. I have heard of no response from her, whether to me personally or in public. The third commitment that she would have made is that she will be back in Tobago in January to hold a meeting. I was waiting. I think January is now past, and I have not seen her. So that is where. So that the three commitments about which I'm aware, I don't know of her meeting any of them.
Thank you for tuning in to another Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council media briefing for the week ending January 10th, 2015.